The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Well, hello. Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip.
And I'm CJ.
And it is a Wednesday.
After the big inauguration.
After the big inauguration and the naming of all the committees and all the promises, Coogan promises, au journal, passion, honesty, and openness on his first day as mayor. Names of Corporation Council, Special Assistant, committees named. Later.
So what's interesting about that is that's a union shop moving into a non-union shop.
Well, what a surprise. What a surprise.
So I wonder if that's union busting.
Absolutely, but, you know, we know that. But, listen, the mayor's promising passion, honesty, and openness, and I believe he'll make every attempt to do that. I know Paul is fundamentally an honest guy. We don't have to worry about a crime wave infesting the city hall.
He's going to make Gina Raimondo eat those words.
Yeah, well, you know, it doesn't mean there won't be any nefarious activities by some of the people left over, namely people who have been auditing books for 30 years and moving money around like they're Chinese checkers and were kept in office. And, you know, but he is, has lines of communication. I believe he called you once when.
Oh, yes, he did.
And he did call me this morning about our last show.
That was about Sarah LaPointe, correct?
Special assistant.
Yep.
And he pointed out, and I asked him if it was okay if I said it on the show, and he said, yeah. He said, there will be no $30,000 stipend. The salary will be the $45,000 or whatever it is, which is, obviously I agree with. I don't believe in, as we said on the last show, that's not what stipends are for, to give massive pay raises to people under the guise of giving them a little bump for a little extra work, which is what stipends were created to do, or in lieu of a salary for people who do things where there's no salary attached, and you throw them a stipend, which is kind of like what you get when you're on a board. You know, you're getting
$32 every 2 weeks for some boards.
You're getting something like that, and you're on a board and you're putting in your time. Okay, that's what a stipend is. Not a $30,000 stipend, a $10,000 stipend for putting your mucklucks on. And, you know, Paul and I always, you know, are very, very honest with each other. And I told him that, you know, I agree with him about the stipends, and he said he's against stipends, which I was happy to hear. But I also told him, I went on record, as I always do, that I'm against the special assistant's job, always have been, as I am with the chief of staff. Special assistant is to serve as a liaison between the mayor's office and community groups. I truly believe that a mayor that has a city administrator, a CFO, and all these other people, what else has he got to do? Have a buffer. Liaisons are another word for buffer. And to pay people when we're raising taxes where people are losing their houses is just, to me, unacceptable. We need to cut fat, and therein lies a lot of fat. And he said, well, you know, the new charter has got a lot more duties, and you got to make a lot of reports. Baloney. This special assistant, didn't this start out, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, because, you know, because these titles are like, they changed the titles of jobs, and like Faust Fiore, we did find out that Faust is actually still working in the city, right, before?
Yeah.
So, but they're gonna, you know, he got a lifetime gig for being a political hack. And this is one of the reasons that we have such ineffectiveness in government. We don't have qualified people. You don't have to take a test for these jobs. You're a political appointee. It's not like a police officer or a firefighter has to take an entrance exam, score high enough to to get on the job, go to an academy, graduate from an academy, meet a set of criterias to be designated a firefighter or a police officer in according to the state requirements. No, they disappear into the woodwork. So this individual graduated UMass Amherst.
She was a former legislative aide to Carol Fiola.
Yeah, so like
And-
a political job, from one political job to another
But
political
here's the
job.
thing.
To you know, this stuff of between community groups, as I said, and as we always say, we can disagree without being disagreeable.
Well, and the thing is that people are already talking about they're moving around, Paul. They're like in orbit. So we'll find out what happens. But I'm going to quote Paul here. I need your help. Fall River needs everyone to become involved and to unite behind common goals, to demand that those of us who lead do so honestly. We need to make sure that our civic conversations are civil and respectful.
And I applaud him for that, and I know he's capable of doing that, because we were always civil and respectful when we were going hammer and tong on the school bond, which we found out we didn't need, but now we will need, because we're going to put a few more hundred people out of their homes when that kicks in
Right.
23. But as
Well,
I said,
actually,
he
it's
wants our help, but see, this is the thing about politics. That you're right. You can be civil, or you can be. It can be acrimonious as it is on the federal level. But the problem we have here is that whether it's civil discourse or civil disobedience, the reality is it doesn't change. Doesn't change things, because, as I said, Paul and I can disagree about the special assistant, and his point to me was, I feel I need that. Well, that means it's going to stay, and I disagree with that. Respectfully this time, rather than, but it's a political position. Didn't this start out, as I said, if we're looking at it, didn't this start out as the neighborhood coordinator?
No, this started out as Sam Sutter's special assistant. He needed to get, he needed to get
Oh,
a
Sam
job.
needed everybody. Sam
Right.
wanted an entire cabinet.
He
wanted
liked
more
big
people
government.
like than a president.
Right,
had.
he liked big government.
He
But-
loves big government.
So he put Rob Bentleweski on as the special assistant. That position was very controversial then. It has remained controversial since then. And when the city council was actually split on putting it into the ordinances, and personally, because those positions are put in ordinance, you, the voter, can have it taken out. You, the voter, can sign a petition and get it taken out. Get those 100 signatures, turn them into the city council, say, you do it, or we're going to get the rest of the signatures, and we're going to do it. This is the way it's going to be. You've got to show them who's boss.
And we are going to begin to do that with CAG. We are going to begin to push. Let's see the citizens put their money where their mouth is if they complain. But as I said, this position, it's always been controversial. You got a special assistant after you gave him a chief of staff.
Right.
So how many people do you need to help you be mayor when you have a CFO, a treasurer, an auditor, a city administrator, all of which run the city? So what are you now? You've become like the king or the queen of England. Are you a purely ceremonial mayor? We've always advocated for a Class E charter, because I don't truly believe we need a mayor in this city. We need a city manager who's answerable about the finances, because that's what really will float this city or not. So I disagree. Respectfully disagree with this position. I look at this, she's a graduate of UMass Amherst. I don't believe in hearsay what her degree was in. Probably political science or something.
I think it was communications.
Something.
I read it on her Facebook page this morning.
All right, you read it on Facebook. I don't do Facebook.
You don't do Facebook. I know.
I don't do Facebook. So you'd assume that if they put this in the article, they'd put what her degree was in. But she's a graduate. But let's look. Apparently, she worked for a politician. Now she's working for another politician. And those jobs are all political jobs. And I truly don't believe the man needs a special assistant. I don't even think he needs a chief of staff. But forget about special assistant. This job is another waste of the taxpayers' money, in my opinion. And, you know, they can all have their attitude. But to say about the old guard, this isn't old guard, new guard thing. You know, we've gone over this
Several times.
several times. It doesn't matter, new guard, old guard. It's not who's in the positions. It's the positions themselves. If they're not required, if they're irrelevant, if they're political fat positions, pork, they should be gone. It doesn't matter whether you have a new name in it or an old name in it. Shouldn't have a special assistant. I don't care if we got a special assistant who nobody's ever heard of. Can't say it's the old guard. Nobody knows her. It's like this guy they got for
Corporate counsel?
corporate counsel, Alan Rumsey. Pretty
Brown University?
impressive undergrad degree from a Ivy League school, Brown University, and earned his law degree at Pennsylvania University. Okay, nobody knows him. You can't call him old guard.
No, you can't.
Can't call him old guard. So the people who are whacking the mayor about old guard, we got a corporation counsel that is an old guard. We had a new guard with Jazel, but Joe Macy was technically old guard.
That's right.
You know, everybody gets a mixture. So that's not the issue here. Wake up, people. It's not who's in these jobs, it's the fact that these jobs exist. It's like my favorite political job in England that was eliminated, and I believe, it was in the 1950s.
I was going to say 1950 something. I remember
1950 something,
Yeah.
maybe 54 or something like that. It was a civil service job, an appointed job in England, and that job was to stand on the White Cliffs of Dover and keep a lookout for Napoleon Bonaparte's invasion fleet. So look it up. By 1954, Napoleon had been gone for quite a bit. There was no reason for that job.
But it was a great pork job, that's
But
for
it was
sure.
a great, it's a great pork job. So this is the problem. Look, to get back to really serious note here, we have people looking at losing their homes, having to remortgage their house with a reverse mortgage on a house that's been paid for a long time to stay in their homes because tax increases of doubling over $600 a quarter, $300 a quarter, $200. Renters are going to be having to be evicted because landlords can't absorb these kind of things. Then you add that to massive water bills. I mean, you talk about Fall River, people can't afford this. This city, as we said, it's a poor city. You know, everybody doesn't live in the North End.
And the worst part about it is, under Correa, this city started to create us like Boston did by
Yep.
creating market rate housing.
That's right.
And what that market rate housing does is it makes apartments unaffordable to the basic Fall River resident because he wanted to bring in the people from Boston.
Yeah, he did a real good job, didn't he?
Boston rents are so high that people can't live in Boston, so they're going everywhere else where the rents are lower. And they're so high that Governor Baker signed a $5 million legislation to create affordable housing in Boston. In Boston! So this tells you something.
Yeah, it tells you that
And for the fact that CDA actually gave these people money, CDA money, which is supposed to be for low-income people.
That's right.
CDA gave money to these market rate housing developers.
Where is our tenants advocacy group? Remember when they were going to knock down the project down on Rodman Street?
Yeah.
Where are they?
I have no idea.
Where is our old friend? Where are they now advocating for the poor people of Fall River? Well, the Coalition for Social Justice. Where are they? Where are they now?
They're more political
Do I
than
see
anything
them
else.
picketing City Hall? I'll go picket with you. We can't have people in a city that the average per capita income is $24,000 and the household income is $34,000, which is less than half the state average, going to cut fire and police. Well, no, they're not, if you don't allow them to.
And that's the thing. The
Because-
voters need to know they got the power.
Well, you know, the problem is that we've evolved to where they're holding signs for mayors rather than doing their jobs as union officials. Every time they tried to cut our Manning, I appeared before the council. When we tried to get the Manning standard, I went in front of the council with over 3,000 pages of research to prove why we needed the Manning. They never drastically cut our manpower. We went from 300 to 255 because they made a decision to supplement that loss of manpower with overtime, and people were making overtime. I still wasn't in favor of it. But
And they're still making it up with overtime to this day.
But we maintained that manning power, and we fought, and we picketed, and we walked the picket line. We didn't kiss the mayor's butt. We didn't take board positions. We didn't take appointments from the mayor. We went down there and screamed our butts off.
Didn't you once get a petition?
I went down into the well and basically made the presentation to fight against changing the chief to a contract chief, because we had a union. And it's up to the police and fire unions when they threaten cuts in a department to show up. Not to go kiss the mayor's butt. To show up and scream and show them why they can't cut. Give them the statistics. Go in front of the council. Show them what a fire propagation curve is. Show them the studies in Cleveland, in Providence, Rhode Island, about the difference between a 3-man company and a 4-man company and a 5-man company for various evolutions. Don't give me this crap, because you are de facto agreeing with tax increases for the public and yourself. And maybe you don't care because you might be making enough money now. But it's not fair to the people. And it's not fair to your membership. Because public safety is a priority. And if you don't make the mayor and the city council keep that a priority, it's just as much your fault. As a matter of fact, in my opinion, it's more your fault. Because that's when you should be out there screaming, because that's what unions do. So we got off on that tangent, but
I want to take this back to the liaison position.
yeah,
It's to meet with the neighborhoods, correct?
community groups.
Community groups. Okay, that's neighborhoods.
Yeah,
Look at the city council posting of the postings of the city council. Liaisons, all the way down at the bottom, it says neighborhood. Michelle Dion and Christopher Peckham. Why do we need 3 people now? We've already got 2. Why do we need 3? Oh, by the way, there's also liaisons to the library, to veterans, to senior senate, school committee, council on aging, arts and entertainment. What is this woman going to do? What is this woman going to do? The same thing we said with Monica, the same thing we said with Betleweski. What are you going to do?
fact.
What are you going to do? What did Monica do? And I'm not saying Monica didn't do a good job or whatever the case may be, but Monica brought food trucks to Fall River.
Yeah.
That was her big claim to fame, bringing food trucks to Fall River.
Well, look,
And we paid $50,000-$60,000 a year to bring a food truck to Fall River. That's a problem.
fat in government, the taxpayers are ready to revolt, so it's time for everybody to get together. And I will be the first guy on the picket line and at the city hall if they try to cut public safety. and I will be down there with facts and figures.
And let's make it
And
clear.
I should be accompanied by the police and fire unions and all the citizens.
And let's
Because we
make
will
it
fight
clear.
against it. That's not the first place, and we've said that for 8 years we've been on the air now. It's the 8th year we're beginning. Police and fire should be the last place cut. Education, police, and fire, not the first place. And when you allow politicians to make those cuts, it's your fault as
That's
a
right.
citizen and as a public safety guy.
And let's make
because
it clear,
that
though.
should be recall. That's a true reason to recall
Right.
people.
Right.
When they're allowing special assistants and chiefs of staff and CFOs that we never had till, what, 4 or 5 years ago?
Correct.
All these positions with their giant salaries being attached, and then they're going to cut fire and police. It's up to the people of this city and those departments to stand up for themselves and revolt and throw the people out of office who make them, they've been targets, and that's a standard political ploy. Threaten the people with public safety. And if you allow it, you are actually helping them.
And let's make it clear, we're not saying the city is talking about cuts yet.
No, we're not.
We're not saying that, because we're talking about doing an underride, which will take some tax dollars away from the city and give them back to the people. And that's when you will hear the threats. You will hear threats for everything. You will
Yeah.
hear lies about what this will do to the city, how it will devastate the city. You will hear the lies.
But all they ever do is lie.
That's
And
right.
they don't pay attention anyway. That's one of the reasons you got to get them out of office periodically, as we said. I don't know if we'll ever get an underride, but I know I will be starting to repeal that charter. We will be looking to get rid of this disastrous charter, which was used as an excuse for these jobs. And secondly, we'll be looking to get rid of the CPA, which is another tax that's totally irrelevant. But let's get back to the big one now, the big one. Since we've been on the air, this is the 8th year, we've been talking about TIFs and how useless they are. And just as when I went in front of the council and gave them 3,000 pages of documentation on Manning, they tried to counteract that by bringing in somebody to lie, and then we kiboshed that. But they don't pay attention, and they don't care what reality is. They want to take care of their friends. This is
It's from Axios.
Axios. Now,
Dion Raboon.
okay, firms, what economists, I got to read that again. What economists, people who understand how to affect our economy, have been saying for years, such programs are a waste of money. All TIFs are taking care of the big companies, or as Ricky Gervais said on the Golden Globes. I didn't watch it. I don't watch those Hollywood,
And that's exactly what they were.
But he encapsulated, please watch it, because he talked about how, never mind expounding your political views, you don't know anything, you live in a dream world. But he talked about Apple, and Apple's new TV show that talks about being invested in doing the right thing while they're employing basically slave labor all over the world. And he also included Amazon and a whole bunch of other companies. And everybody laughed, but it was true. That's the great thing about comedy. Comedy, like George Carlin, satire is where the defiance begins. They point out how ludicrous it is. This is it. Let me read that sentence again. Research confirms what economists have been saying for years. TIFs are a waste of money. Such programs are a waste of money. Will Fall River stop giving out TIFs? I doubt it. The only way they will stop giving out TIFs is if you don't elect these people. So now you've got it. They've confirmed what we've been saying, and they're saying you guys are crazy. Milton Friedman's nuts, even though he won a Nobel Prize in economy. You can give this government sand and they won't run out of it. No, Milton Friedman was right. These economists are right. The statistics are right. We've said this for every TIF they've ever given out. We know that it's BS. And the only people The only people that gain are the big mega companies, and the only people that lose are the taxpayers.
And let's look at where this new, quote-unquote, new research is coming from. A paper from researchers at Princeton and Columbia
Princeton.
Business School.
Princeton. Isn't that like a tech school or something?
Yeah, it's like
Vocational-
BCC.
Yeah, Princeton.
Princeton and Columbia Business School found no
Columbia.
evidence that business tax incentives given to individual companies increase broader economic growth at the state and local levels. So what we're doing is we're giving away taxpayer dollars because you're paying for those. They get a $10 million tip. What do you think? They just take it out of the sky? No, they turn that money and they get it from you, the homeowner. You, the taxpayer. And why does this matter? Because it's not just Amazon, highly publicized headquarter project that has attracted massive tax subsidies from cities and state governments.
And look at what else this article says. This is fascinating. You know, between the lines, said co-authors Kalen Slattery and Owen Zidar wrote in a study that they found a negative effect on housing markets for municipalities that attract new companies with incentives, seeing on an average of a 4% decrease in housing prices. Decrease. So the apparent decline provides some weak suggestive evidence that the welfare effect of these subsidies might be negative. So, and it says if you want to go deeper, and I will, it says go to Google an uncertain future for corporate tax breaks, but they should have added something to this. An uncertain future for corporate tax breaks everywhere but Fall River.
Right.
And then when tax incentives go wrong, like in Fall River. But
all of those articles can be found on Axios, as well as some other important information.
And look at, again, I don't expect Mayor Coogan to fix Fall River overnight. I've said it took us a decade and a half to get here, or actually more than that, because this started when Lambert started skimming from the retirement fund. It's going to take us time, but we've got to start, in my opinion, by doing the right thing, and that is by cutting the fat in government first.
And remembering the taxpayer.
Yes.
Remember the taxpayer.
Or remember, actually, the people who you work for.
Exactly, exactly. Hey, thanks for watching. We hope you follow up on some of our information. And remember, stay angry, people.